I was stealing his copper pipes when Damon walked in. Not my finest moment, I'll admit. But when you're 6 months pregnant, homeless, and the building you've been secretly living in just got sold, desperate measures become survival. The pipes in the basement were worth maybe $200. Enough for prenatal vitamins and a week at the cheapest motel. My hands froze on the wrench. The beam from his flashlight pinned me like a criminal in a spotlight, which technically I was. "Don't move." His voice came from behind the light, steady and commanding in that way alphas always sound, like the universe naturally bends to their will. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to drop the wrench and bolt through the basement window I'd pried open 3 months ago. But my body had other ideas. 6 months of pregnancy weight plus malnutrition made me exactly as graceful as a drunk penguin. So I did the only thing I could. I turned to face him, one hand instinctively covering my belly, and waited for the police sirens. They didn't come. Instead, Damon lowered the flashlight, and I saw his face for the first time in 6 months. Sharp jawline, dark hair that fell just slightly too long over his forehead, and those eyes that had looked at me like I mattered at a charity gala I'd crashed while running from my ex. The same eyes that had been kind when I was drowning in champagne and bad decisions. Before I woke up alone in a hotel room with nothing but shame and his scent still on my skin. Recognition hit him at the exact same moment. I watched it flicker across his face. Confusion, then shock, then something that looked dangerously close to hope. "Kai!" His voice cracked on my name. And that's when I ran. If you want to see what happens when Kai's past catches up with him, hit that like button, subscribe and comment where you are watching from. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. I made it exactly 15 feet before a contraction seized my entire body. Not labor, thank God, just the Braxton Hicks contractions that had been getting worse all week. But it dropped me to my knees on the concrete floor, gasping through the pain while my vision went spotty at the edges. Damon was beside me in seconds. "Don't touch me," I managed through gritted teeth. But he was already there, one hand hovering near my shoulder, uncertain. "You're pregnant." Not a question. An accusation wrapped in devastation. Brilliant observation. The contraction eased and I struggled to my feet, using the wall for support. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have copper pipes to steal and a life to ruin somewhere else. That's my baby." Another non-question, and this time his voice held something raw and broken. I finally looked at him properly. He was wearing an expensive suit, probably cost more than I'd made in the last year combined, with construction dust on the shoulders. The building's new owner, here to inspect his investment. Of course, my luck had always been spectacularly terrible. "Your baby," I laughed, high and bitter. "You don't get to claim something just because you happen to be there at conception. That's not how this works. You disappeared." His jaw clenched. "I woke up and you were gone. No note, no number, nothing. I looked for you, Kai. For weeks." "Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't leave my contact information after our grief-fueled one-night stand." Sarcasm was easier than admitting the truth, that I'd run because he'd been too kind, too gentle, too much of everything I couldn't let myself have. What was I supposed to do? Leave my homeless shelter address? That landed. I saw it hit him, watched his expression shift from anger to something worse. Pity. "Don't," I warned. "Don't you dare look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm a charity case you can fix." Damon took a step back, hands raised in surrender. "I wasn't. You were." Another contraction, smaller this time, pulled at my abdomen. I pressed my palm against the swell of my belly, feeling the baby shift restlessly. "Look, I'm sorry for breaking into your building. I'll leave. Forget you saw me." "Where will you go?" "Not your problem." "The hell it isn't." His alpha voice came out then, that edge of command that made omega instincts want to comply. I felt my body respond before my brain could stop it, that traitorous flutter of submission. I shoved it down hard. "I stopped being your problem the morning you didn't chase after me. That was unfair and I knew it." He didn't even know my last name. But fair had stopped matching around month 4 of sleeping in abandoned buildings and bathing in public restroom sinks. I couldn't chase what I couldn't find. Damon said quietly. But I'm finding you now. Please, just come upstairs. Let me make you tea. We can talk. I don't want your tea. Then what do you want? I wanted to rewind 6 months and make different choices. I wanted my ex to have never put his hands on me. I wanted to not be pregnant and terrified and so bone-tired that standing felt like climbing a mountain. I wanted to stop being so angry at this alpha who'd done nothing except exist in the wrong place at the wrong time. Instead, I said, I want you to let me leave. Drop a comment below. Would you trust Damon if you were in Kai's position? Subscribe because what happens next will change everything. Damon didn't move. There's a storm coming. Weather service is calling for the worst freeze in 20 years. Where were you planning to go? I hadn't been planning anything. That was the problem with survival mode. You stopped planning and started just reacting. But I'd be damned if I admitted that to him. I'll figure it out. I always do. You're living here. Not a question this time either. Statement of fact. In an abandoned building with no heat, no running water. How long? 3 months. The admission slipped out before I could stop it. Since the shelter kicked me out for being pregnant. Apparently male omegas carrying babies make the other residents uncomfortable. The muscle in Damon's jaw twitched. That's illegal. So is breaking and entering. But here we are. I gestured around the basement, at my pathetic nest in the corner. A sleeping bag I'd found in a dumpster, a cardboard box that served as furniture, my few possessions in a backpack. Everything I owned in the world. Look, I appreciate the concern or whatever this is, but I've been taking care of myself for a long time. I don't need my guest house. Rescue from some alpha who thinks, wait, what? I have a guest house, Damon repeated, and for the first time since he'd walked in, he looked uncertain. On my property. It's small, maybe 500 square feet, but it has heat and water and it's winterized. You could stay there. I stared at him. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? You look like an alpha having a breakdown because you accidentally knocked up a stranger, and now your savior complex is in overdrive. He flinched. Good. Let him hurt too. Or, Damon said carefully, I look like someone who's been searching for you for 6 months and just found out you've been living in conditions that could kill you and my child. It's not your child. The words came out automatically. A defense mechanism I'd built up over months of doctor's appointments alone, and nights wondering if the baby would feel the absence of a father. Biologically, biology doesn't make you a parent. Showing up does. And you weren't here. Because you ran. For the first time, real anger flashed in Damon's eyes. You left before I woke up. Before I could ask your name or get your number or tell you that night meant something to me. It was sex, Damon. Grief sex. You just lost the biggest contract of your career, and I stopped myself before admitting too much. It didn't mean anything. You remember my name. His voice went soft. After 6 months. You still remember. Of course I remembered. I'd whispered it in the dark while he held me. Repeated it to myself on the worst nights as a reminder that someone had once touched me with kindness instead of cruelty. Damon. The alpha who'd made me feel safe for exactly 4 hours before reality crashed back in. I couldn't tell him any of that. The guest house, I said instead. What's the catch? No catch. There's always a catch. Damon ran his hand through his hair. Frustrated. Fine. The catch is you let me make sure you and the baby are safe. That you see a doctor regularly. That you eat actual meals. Is that really so terrible? Yes, my brain screamed. Because accepting help meant owing something. Meant giving someone power over you. Meant trusting that they wouldn't use your vulnerability against you later. My ex had taught me that lesson very well. But the baby kicked then. A sharp jab against my ribs that reminded me this wasn't just about my pride anymore. The temperature was already dropping. The building had no insulation. Another night here might be survivable. A week of sub-zero temperatures definitely wouldn't be. 1 month, I heard myself say, just until the cold snap passes. Then I'm gone. Relief washed over Damon's face so completely it was almost painful to watch. 1 month, he agreed. But Kai, I'm not giving up after that. On you or on being a father to our child? Our child. The words hung in the freezing air between us, terrifying and impossible and maybe, just maybe, the tiniest bit hopeful. We'll see, I said, which was the closest I could come to admitting he might be right. Like, comment and subscribe now because what I discovered about Damon's property is going to blow your mind. The guest house wasn't empty. Damon's car was one of those sleek hybrids that probably cost more than most people's yearly salary. I sat in the passenger seat, my backpack clutched to my chest like a shield, watching the city lights blur past the window. He kept glancing at me. Quick, nervous looks like he thought I might vanish if he took his eyes off me for too long. Stop staring, I muttered. I'm not staring. I'm observing. That's literally the same thing. How far along are you? 6 months. Almost 7. I shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. The leather seat was too soft after months of sleeping on concrete. Before you ask, yes, I've seen a doctor. The free clinic downtown. They said the baby's healthy despite everything. Despite me was the unspoken addition. Despite my terrible circumstances and lack of proper nutrition and the constant stress of survival. Good, Damon said, and his hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's good. We drove in silence for a while. The city gave way to suburbs, then to the kind of neighborhood where houses had actual yards and probably gates with security codes. My stomach started knotting with anxiety. Where exactly do you live? About 10 more minutes. It's not as fancy as it sounds. That was a lie and we both knew it. We pulled up to a property that made my childhood home look like a storage shed. Modern architecture, all clean lines and huge windows, with mature trees surrounding it for privacy. The main house was lit up, warm and inviting, and sitting in the driveway was another car. Damon swore under his breath. Problem? I asked. That's Marcus's car. My business partner. He has a key, sometimes stops by unannounced, but he cut himself off, reaching for his phone. Let me text him that it's not a good time. Why? I was already defensive. Because you're embarrassed to be seen with a pregnant Omega? What? No, because Marcus can be intense. And you've had enough stress for one night. Before I could respond, the front door opened. A man stepped out onto the porch, tall and polished in the way that screamed old money. Handsome in a calculated way, like he'd been designed rather than born. Marcus. He spotted the car, spotted me through the windshield, and his expression went carefully blank. Too late, I said. Damon got out, moving around to open my door before I could do it myself. I hated how much my body appreciated the gesture, that stupid Omega hindbrain that responded to alpha courtesy even when I knew better. Marcus was already walking toward us, his smile sharp. Damon, I didn't realize you had company tonight. Marcus, this is Kai. Kai, Marcus Chun, my business partner. Charmed, Marcus said, but his eyes were cataloging me with predatory precision. Thrift store clothes, visible pregnancy. The way Damon's hand hovered protectively near my lower back. I didn't know you were seeing anyone. It's complicated, Damon said. Clearly, Marcus's smile didn't waver. Well, I just stopped by to grab those blueprints for the Morrison project. I'll get out of your hair. He disappeared into the house. I could feel the judgment radiating off him like heat waves. He seems nice, I said flatly. He's protective. Of the business of me. Damon guided me toward a stone path that led around the side of the house. The guest house is back here. Marcus won't bother us. The guest house was smaller than the main house but still nicer than anywhere I'd lived in years. Damon unlocked the door and flipped on the lights. Then we both froze. The space wasn't empty. Moving boxes were stacked everywhere, some opened, some still sealed. A desk was shoved against one wall. File cabinets lined another. This wasn't a guest house. It was being used as storage for what looked like Damon's entire architectural firm. I forgot, Damon said weakly. The office flooded last month. We've been using this space for overflow while repairs happen. Right? I turned to leave. Thanks for the ride. I'll just... No, he grabbed my arm gently. Give me 2 hours. I'll move everything to the main house, Set up the bed. Make sure you have everything you need. Please. I was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of running. Tired of pretending I had any other options. Fine. 2 hours. Damon's entire body sagged with relief. Thank you. I'll be fast, I promise. Make yourself comfortable, there's a bathroom through that door. It should have clean towels. He left, practically sprinting toward the main house. I stood in the middle of the storage unit guest house, my reflection catching in a dark window. Hollow eyes, gaunt cheeks, a belly that seemed obscenely large on my thin frame. I looked like exactly what I was, a desperate omega with no other choices. The bathroom did have clean towels, and after months of public restroom sinks, an actual shower felt like a miracle. I stood under the hot water until my skin was pink, watching months of grime and desperation circle the drain. When I came out wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything I'd touched in half a year, voices were drifting through the door. Damon and Marcus arguing. Out of your mind, Marcus was saying. You can't just move a random omega into your property. He's not random. He's pregnant with your baby? So you claim. Damon, think about this rationally. He was living in that building you just bought. Don't you find that convenient? My hands clenched around the towel. Convenient how? Damon's voice had gone cold. He's a homeless omega who just happens to be carrying a child he claims is yours. Shows up exactly when you discover him in a property you now own? Come on. This has con written all over it. Kai wouldn't. You don't know what Kai would or wouldn't do. You slept with him once, 6 months ago. For all you know, he's been planning this. I'd heard enough. I yanked open the door, not caring that I was wearing nothing but a towel, my wet hair dripping onto the floor. Both men turned. Marcus had the grace to look embarrassed. Damon looked stricken. Let me save you the trouble of speculating, I said, my voice ice. Yes, I'm a homeless omega. Yes, I'm desperate. No, I'm not trying to trap anyone or con anyone out of money. The baby is Damon's, you can DNA test if you want proof. And if you think I wanted any of this, you're even stupider than you look. Marcus opened his mouth. I held up a hand. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask for help. I was doing just fine stealing copper pipes and surviving in an abandoned building until your business partner decided to play hero. So if you have a problem with me, take it up with him. Not me. I'm just trying to keep my baby alive. Silence fell, heavy and awkward. Then Marcus grabbed a box and walked past me without a word, heading toward the main house. Damon stood frozen, a box of files in his hands, looking at me like I just performed a miracle. What? I snapped. Nothing. Just, you're incredible. I'm wet and angry and wearing a towel. There's nothing incredible about that. Agree to disagree. He set down the box. I'm sorry about Marcus. He's protective, but he was out of line. He wasn't wrong though. I pulled the towel tighter. This does look suspicious. Pregnant omega, rich alpha, convenient timing. I'd be suspicious too. I'm not suspicious. I know you, Kai. You don't know anything about me except what my body feels like in the dark. The words came out crueler than I intended. Damon flinched, and I felt that traitorous twinge of guilt. Then help me know you, he said quietly. Stay. Not just for a month. Stay and let me prove that I'm not the kind of alpha who abandons his responsibilities. That I'm not. Like whoever hurt you before? Finished. Because it's written all over you. The way you flinch when I move too fast. The way you won't make eye contact when you're scared. Someone hurt you badly. I looked away. That's none of your business. Maybe not. But it is my business if that person is still out there. If they're looking for you. My blood went cold. What makes you think? I don't think. I know. Because you keep looking over your shoulder. Even now, in my guest house, you're standing where you can see both exits. That's not just homelessness, Kai. That's fear. If you've not subscribed yet, please do it now. Because Kai's past is about to walk through that door, and nobody, not even Damon, is ready for what comes next. Couldn't sleep. Damon had worked for 3 straight hours clearing out the guest house, setting up a bed with sheets that smelled like lavender, stocking the mini fridge with actual food. He'd left around midnight with promises to check on me in the morning and a phone number written on a post-it note stuck to the fridge. In case you need anything, he'd said. Day or night. I mean it. Now it was 3 a.m. and I was lying in a real bed for the first time in months, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the feeling that this was all about to come crashing down. Because things like this didn't happen to people like me. Homeless pregnant omegas didn't get rescued by wealthy alphas who actually gave a damn. This was a fairy tale, and fairy tales always had a price. The baby kicked, restless. I put my hand on my belly, feeling the movements beneath my palm. I know, I whispered. I don't trust it either. My phone, the prepaid piece of garbage I'd bought at a gas station, buzzed on the nightstand. At 3 a.m., that could only mean one thing. My stomach dropped as I picked it up. Unknown number. But I knew who it was. The text was simple. Found you. 3 words that made my entire world tilt sideways. Vaughn. My ex. The alpha I'd been running from for 8 months. The reason I'd been at that charity gala in the first place, trying to disappear into a crowd of strangers. He'd found me. My hands shook as I typed back. Leave me alone. The response came immediately. That's my baby you're carrying. I have rights. It's not yours. I was already pregnant when we broke up. Liar. You think I don't know you were with someone else? You think I don't know everything you do? The phone buzzed again. A photo this time. Me walking into the community center 3 months ago. Another photo, me at the free clinic. Another, me sleeping in the basement, taken through a window. He'd been watching me. For months. I was going to be sick. If you contact me again, I'm calling the police. I typed with trembling fingers. Go ahead. Tell them about the restraining order you violated by moving to the city. Tell them how you're squatting in buildings and stealing. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic to a homeless Omega criminal. He was right. The restraining order was mutual. He couldn't come near me, but I also couldn't come within 50 miles of our old town. Moving to the city had been a violation, but it was the only place with resources for someone in my situation. And now he knew where I was. Stay away from me, Vaughn. Or what? You'll run to your new alpha? The architect? Damon Pierce? My blood turned to ice. He knew Damon's name, which meant he'd been watching tonight too. Watching me get into Damon's car. Following us here. He knew where I was staying. Another text. Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts. Rich alphas don't keep broken omegas. Kai. When he figures out what you really are, he'll throw you away just like everyone else did. But I'll still be here. I always wait for you. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. This was bad. This was so much worse than I'd thought. Vaughn wasn't just obsessed, he was organized. He'd been tracking me for months, collecting evidence, building a case for why I belonged to him. And now he knew about Damon. I should leave, pack my pathetic backpack and disappear again before dawn. It was the only way to keep Damon safe, to keep my baby safe. Vaughn was dangerous when he was angry, and I'd just given him ammunition by accepting help from another alpha. But God, I was so tired of running. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Insistent. I know. I whispered again. I know we can't keep doing this. My phone buzzed one more time. See you soon, beautiful. I grabbed my backpack. Drop a like if you think Kai should tell Damon the truth. Comment below whether you'd run or stay. Then subscribe because the choice Kai makes in the next 60 seconds will determine if anyone survives what's coming. I made it as far as the front door before it opened. Not Vaughn, thank God. Damon, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair messed up from sleep, holding 2 mugs of something that smelled like chamomile tea. Couldn't sleep either, he said, then registered my backpack. His expression went carefully neutral. You're leaving. I have to. Why? Because your business partner thinks I'm a con artist. Because I'm putting you in danger just by being here. Because I'm terrified that if I stay, I'll start believing I deserve this. Because my ex just threatened you without you even knowing it. Does there have to be a reason? I countered. Usually, yeah. Damon set down the mugs on a small table by the door. What happened? Did Marcus say something else? Did I do something wrong? No. You've been perfect. That's the problem. I'm confused. People like you don't help people like me without wanting something in return. So what is it? What's the catch I'm not seeing? Damon looked at me for a long moment. Can I show you something? Before you leave. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to push past him and run. But something in his expression made me hesitate. Fine. One thing. Then I'm gone. He led me through the dark, across the lawn toward the main house. I kept my hand on my belly, hyper-aware of every shadow, every sound. But we made it inside without incident. The house was even nicer than I'd imagined. Open concept, modern furniture, art on the walls that was probably worth more than I'd make in a lifetime. Damon led me down a hallway and stopped in front of a closed door. This was going to be a surprise, he said quietly. I was going to wait until you'd settled in. But maybe you need to see it now. He opened the door. The room was painted a soft sage green. A crib was assembled in one corner, still in its plastic wrapping. A changing table waited nearby. A rocking chair sat by the window. Boxes were stacked along one wall, labeled baby clothes, diapers, bottles. Couldn't breathe. I started buying things 2 months ago, Damon said. After I confirmed you were pregnant from the security footage at the clinic. I didn't know if I'd ever find you, but I wanted to be ready, just in case. You've been planning this. I've been hoping for this. There's a difference. I walked into the room like I was in a dream, ran my hand over the crib railing, opened a box to find tiny onesies in soft neutrals, the tags still attached. Why? My voice cracked. You could have just moved on, found someone else, had a planned family with someone who isn't broken. Kai. Damon crossed to me, and for the first time, I let him get close without flinching. You're not broken. You're surviving. There's a difference. You don't know what I've done, what I've let happen to me. Then tell me. And maybe it was the nursery, or the 3 a.m. vulnerability, or the terror of Vaughn's text still burning in my pocket. But I found myself talking. His name is Vaughn. We were together for 2 years. He said he loved me, that we'd have a future together. Then he started getting possessive, controlling. Who I talked to, where I went, what I wore. I touched my arm unconsciously, remembering. When I tried to leave, it got worse. The restraining order kept him away for a while, but he kept finding ways around it. Showing up at my work, leaving things at my door, making it clear that he'd always be watching. That's why you ran. That's why I went to the charity gala. I'd just gotten another gift from him. A photo of me sleeping, taken through my apartment window. I was terrified and angry, and I needed to be somewhere with people, somewhere public. I crashed the gala, drank too much, and then you were there, and you were kind, and I just needed to forget for a few hours. Damon's jaw clenched. Does he know about the baby? He thinks it's his, but it's not. I was already pregnant when I left town. He's been texting me tonight. He knows I'm here. He knows about you. Show me. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and showed him the texts. Watched his expression darken with each message. This is stalking, he said. Harassment. Criminal threat. We need to call the police. And tell them what? That my abusive ex is texting me? They'll say I violated the restraining order first by moving to the city. They'll say I'm unstable. Pregnant omegas aren't exactly taken seriously by law enforcement. Then we'll get a lawyer. A good one. Document everything, build a case. I can't afford a lawyer, Damon. I can barely afford food. I can. He said it simply, like it was obvious. I'll hire someone, the best family law attorney in the state. We'll bury this guy in so much legal paperwork, he'll wish he'd never met you. Why would you do that? Because you're the mother of my child. Because no one should have to live in fear. Because... He stopped, looking frustrated. Because I care about what happens to you, Kai. Is that so hard to believe? Yes, my brain screamed. But looking at his face, at the genuine concern there, at the nursery he'd built on hope alone. He'll come here, I said quietly. He won't let this go. Let him. Damon's voice went hard. Let him show up. We'll be ready. You don't understand. Vaughn isn't rational when he's angry. He's dangerous. So am I. The alpha command in Damon's voice made my omega instincts snap to attention. I'm not letting anyone hurt you or our baby. Not him, not anyone. You're under my protection now, whether you like it or not. It should have felt controlling, possessive, like Vaughn all over again. But it didn't. Felt safe. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. Trust. Let someone help. I've been alone for so long. Then we'll figure it out together. Damon held out his hand. Stay, please, at least until we can get legal protection in place. Don't run from this. I looked at his hand, looked at the nursery behind him, thought about Vaughn's texts and Damon's earnest face and the baby currently using my ribs as a punching bag. I took his hand. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. The relief on Damon's face was almost painful to witness. He squeezed my hand gently, and for the first time in 8 months, I felt something dangerously close to hope. Then every window in the house exploded inward. Glass rained down like deadly snow. Damon threw himself over me, pushing me to the floor as shards scattered across the nursery. The baby kicked frantically, responding to my terror. When the sound stopped, Damon lifted his head carefully. Blood ran down his arm where glass had cut him. Are you hurt? His hands were already checking me over, looking for injuries. I'm fine. Damon, what? A voice from outside, amplified by a megaphone, cut through the night. Come out, Kai. We need to talk. Vaughn. And he wasn't alone. Through the broken windows, I could see multiple figures in the yard. At least 4 alphas, all wearing tactical gear, all standing behind Vaughn like an army. Oh God! I breathed. He brought his pack. Damon pulled out his phone with shaking hands. I'm calling 911. They'll kill you before the cops get here. I grabbed his arm. Vaughn's pack doesn't play by rules. They think Omegas are property. They'll see you as someone who stole what belongs to them. You don't belong to anyone. Try telling them that. Another voice from outside, different from Vaughn's. You have 60 seconds to send out the Omega. After that, we come in. Damon looked at me, his expression fierce. There's a panic room. In the master bedroom. We can. He'll burn the house down. Vaughn doesn't care about collateral damage. Then what do we do? I looked at him. This alpha who'd built a nursery on hope, who'd believed me without question, who was bleeding from protecting me. And I made the hardest decision of my life. I go out there. Absolutely not. Listen to me. I grabbed his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. If I go out, he'll talk. He always wants to talk, to explain why I'm wrong and he's right. That gives you time to call for help. Real help. But if we wait, people die. You die. I don't care. I do. The words came out fierce. I care. So you're going to let me do this, and you're going to make sure my baby survives even if I don't. Kai! I kissed him, hard and desperate and full of everything I'd been too scared to feel. Then I pulled away before I could change my mind. 30 seconds. The voice from outside called. I walked toward the front door, my hands raised, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Behind me, I heard Damon frantically dialing. Good. He'd get help. The baby would be safe. That was all that mattered. I opened the door and stepped out into the night. Vaughn stood in the center of the lawn, his pack spread out behind him. He was exactly as I remembered, handsome in a cold way, with eyes that had never quite looked human. There's my Omega, he said, smiling. Miss me? Vaughn's smile was the same one he'd worn the first time he'd hit me. Pleasant. Almost loving. Completely wrong. You look terrible, he said, walking closer. His pack stayed back, a wall of muscle and threat. Is this what happens when you whore yourself out to strange alphas? You get skinny and desperate. I'm pregnant, Vaughn. That's what happens. I kept my voice steady even though my legs were shaking. What do you want? What I've always wanted. You. Home. Where you belong. He reached out to touch my belly and I stepped back instinctively. His expression darkened. Don't flinch from me. I'm not going to hurt our baby. It's not your baby. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. Pain exploded across my cheek, and I stumbled but didn't fall. Behind me, I heard Damon roar something, but I held up my hand without turning around. Stay inside, I called back, tasting blood. Please. Such a good little Omega, Vaughn crooned. Still trying to protect the alpha who can't even keep you safe. That's always been your problem, Kai. You think you're stronger than you are. And you think ownership equals love. We're both wrong about a lot of things. That made him pause. I do love you. That's why I've been patient. Why I've given you time to realize your mistake. But my patience has limits. One of his pack members shifted, and I recognized him, Trevor, who'd always been the most violent during their disciplinary sessions with Omegas who stepped out of line. Is that what this is? I gestured to the broken windows, the armed men. Love. This is me taking back what's mine before that architect gets any more ideas. Vaughn's eyes flickered to the house. Tell him to come out. I want to have a conversation alpha to alpha. No. No. Vaughn laughed. You don't get to tell me no anymore, Kai. That privilege expired when you ran away with my child. DNA test. My voice was stronger now, fueled by anger. You want to claim this baby is yours? Take a DNA test. Prove it. That threw him. Just for a second, uncertainty flickered across his face. You were with him before you left. I pressed. You're so sure this baby is yours? Then prove it. Because I know it's not. I know exactly when I got pregnant, and you weren't anywhere near me. You're lying. Am I? Or are you just terrified that I found someone who actually treats me like a person instead of property? Vaughn's hand moved to his belt. I saw the gun before he drew it. Time seemed to slow down. I heard Damon shout. Saw Trevor reach for his own weapon. Watched Vaughn's finger move toward the trigger. And then headlights flooded the yard. Not one car. 5. They came from every direction, surrounding Vaughn's pack in seconds. Doors opened and people emerged, not police. Something else. Marcus stepped out of the lead car, followed by a woman I didn't recognize. She was tall, commanding, with the kind of presence that made alphas like Vaughn instinctively take a step back. Gentlemen, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. I'm Agent Sarah Chun with the FBI. You're all under arrest for interstate stalking, harassment, and about 15 other charges we've been building for the last 3 months. Vaughn's face went white. You can't. We can and we are. Agent Chin gestured, and suddenly there were agents everywhere, moving with practiced precision. Vaughn Morrison, you have the right to remain silent. The next few minutes were chaos. Vaughn tried to run. Trevor pulled his gun and got tossed for his trouble. The other pack members went down without a fight, their bravado evaporating the moment real authority arrived. I stood frozen in the middle of it all, not quite believing what I was seeing. Marcus appeared at my elbow. You should sit down before you pass out. How? I'm not just a business partner. I'm also a lawyer. Corporate law mostly, but I know people. He guided me to the porch steps, and I sank down gratefully. When Damon called me 10 minutes ago screaming about stalkers and broken windows, I called Agent Chun. She's been tracking Vaughn's pack for months. Apparently they have a habit of this, targeting vulnerable Omegas, building these twisted families. You're not his first victim. The world tilted sideways. He's done this before? To at least 6 other Omegas we know of. The FBI's been trying to catch him in the act. You just gave them exactly what they needed. Damon burst out of the house, looking wild. His eyes found me immediately and he crossed the yard at a run, dropping to his knees in front of where I sat. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? I swear to God if he... I'm fine. I touched my cheek where Vaughn had hit me. Mostly fine. Damon's expression went murderous as he saw the mark. He started to stand, probably to go after Vaughn even though the man was already in handcuffs, but I grabbed his arm. Don't. He's not worth it. He hit you. And he's going to prison for it. That's better than anything you could do to him. Agent Chun approached us, her expression professional but not unkind. Kai, I'm going to need a statement, and we'll need to document your injuries. collect evidence of the stalking pattern. Are you up for that tonight? Or would you rather wait until morning? I looked at Damon, who was still vibrating with barely suppressed violence. At Marcus, who was watching me with something that might have been respect. At the agents loading Vaughn and his pack into separate vehicles. Tonight, I said. I want this finished. If you want to see the next chapter of Kai and Damon's story, subscribe now. Because what happens in the next 48 hours will test everything they've built together. The hospital was too bright and too cold. I sat on an examination table while a nurse documented every injury Vaughn had left on me over the years. Scars I'd learned to hide. Fractures that had healed wrong because I couldn't afford proper medical care. The baby kicked constantly through the whole exam, like they could sense my distress. Damon sat in a chair by the door, his hands clenched into fists, watching every moment. Agent Chun had offered to make him wait outside, but I'd asked him to stay. I needed him to see this, to understand exactly what he was signing up for by keeping me around. You have 3 previously broken ribs, the nurse said quietly, making notes. 2 broken fingers that healed without setting. Extensive scarring on your back and arms. How long was this going on? 2 years, give or take. And you never reported it? I reported it once. Got a restraining order. Fat lot of good that did. I touched my belly. The first time I felt the baby kick, I was sleeping in an alley. That's when I knew I had to disappear completely. No hospital records, no paper trail. Nothing he could use to find me. The nurse's expression softened. You were protecting your child. I was trying to. I laughed bitterly. Look how well that worked out. You're alive, Damon said from his corner. You both are. That's what matters. The nurse finished her examination and left us alone. Damon immediately crossed to me, careful not to touch without permission. I'm sorry, he said. For what? You saved my life tonight. If you hadn't called Marcus, I should have seen the signs sooner. The way you flinch, the way you check exits. I recognized it because I knew, and I still didn't push hard enough to get you away from that building earlier. You couldn't have known Vaughn would escalate like that. Maybe not, but I knew you were in danger. His hand hovered near mine. Can I? I nodded, and he laced our fingers together. His hand was warm, solid. Real. What happens now? I asked. Now we go home. You rest. Tomorrow we meet with the lawyer Marcus already has on retainer, the best family law attorney in the state like I promised. We get you proper legal protection. File for emergency custody documentation. Make sure Vaughn can never claim rights to this baby. That costs money. I have money. Damon. No, his voice was firm. This is not negotiable. You're not facing this alone anymore. I'm not going to be one of those alphas who makes a child and then disappears. I'm in this, Kai. Completely. Whether you want me to be or not. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care this much? We barely know each other. One night 6 months ago doesn't make us. That night changed my life, Damon interrupted. I was going through the motions, building buildings I didn't care about, dating people who didn't matter, pretending I was happy because that's what successful alphas do. And then I met you, and for 4 hours I felt something real. You weren't impressed by my money or my firm or any of the superficial shit people usually care about. You just saw me. I was drunk and crying about my life falling apart. You were honest. That's rarer than you think. He squeezed my hand. When you disappeared, I kept replaying that night, wondering what I did wrong. If I could have said something different, done something better. And then I found out you were pregnant, and everything clicked into place. This wasn't random. This was meant to happen. You don't believe in fate. I didn't, but I'm starting to. Agent Chun appeared in the doorway, holding a tablet. Kai, I have good news. Based on your statement and the evidence we collected tonight, the DA is charging Vaughn with multiple felonies. He's not getting bail. And we found something else. She turned the tablet around. On screen was a file folder labeled with my name. Inside were photos, hundreds of them. Me at the shelter. Me at the clinic. Me in the community center basement. Sleeping. He's been stalking you systematically for 8 months, Agent Chun said, building a case in his mind for why you belong to him. We also found detailed plans for what he called a retrieval operation. Tonight wasn't spontaneous. He's been planning this for weeks. My stomach turned. He was going to take me. More than that. He had plans to disappear you completely. New identity, new location. He has property in 3 different states, all registered under shell corporations. You would have vanished. Damon made a sound low in his throat that was barely human. Agent Chun closed the tablet. But that's not going to happen. Vaughn Morrison is going away for a very long time, and his pack members are all cooperating, trying to cut deals. We're going to dismantle his entire operation. She left. Damon and I sat in the Too Bright hospital room, processing the reality of how close I'd come to losing everything. I want to go home, I said finally. To your home. Is that okay? That's more than okay. Damon helped me down from the examination table. Let's get you somewhere safe. The guest house felt different when we got back, like it had transformed from temporary shelter into something more permanent. Damon had already called a glass repair company. They'd be there in the morning to fix the windows. For now, he'd boarded them up. I stood in the middle of the space, still wearing the hospital gown under my jacket because my clothes had been taken as evidence, and tried to process everything that had happened. You should sleep, Damon said. You've been through hell. I don't think I can sleep. I touched my belly. Baby's too active. They know something happened. Can I? He gestured toward my stomach. I nodded. Damon knelt in front of me, placing both hands gently on my belly. The baby immediately kicked against his palms, and his face lit up with wonder. Hey there, he said softly. I'm your dad. I know that's probably weird to hear, but it's true. And I promise you, I'm going to be here. For every moment, every milestone. I'm not going anywhere. The baby kicked again, harder. I think they heard you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Good. Damon looked up at me, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. Because I need them to know. And I need you to know. I'm not Vaughn. I'm not going to control you or hurt you or make you feel like you're less than you are. But I am going to be here every single day, whether you love me back or not. Love. The word felt foreign. Damon, we barely. I know. It's too fast. Too much. You probably think I'm crazy. He stood, his hands still resting on my belly. But I also know what I feel. And I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to find you. Not just because of the baby. Because of you. I should have pushed him away. Should have said something about trauma bonding and adrenaline and how emotions weren't real when you just survived a crisis. Instead, I kissed him. This time it wasn't desperate or rushed. It was soft, searching, a question and an answer all at once. When we pulled apart, Damon was smiling. Does this mean you'll stay? Not just for a month, but really stay. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. I don't know how to be in a relationship that isn't toxic. I don't know how to trust that this won't all fall apart. But I want to try. Is that enough? That's everything. He kissed my forehead. Now please, let me help you get some rest. Tomorrow we deal with lawyers and statements and all the practical stuff. Tonight you just need to be safe. He helped me into bed, tucking the blankets around me with careful precision. Then he started to leave. Wait, I called. Don't go. Just stay with me. I don't want to be alone. Damon's expression softened. He climbed into bed beside me, fully clothed, maintaining a respectful distance. But when I reached for his hand, he held on tight. I've got you, he whispered. Sleep. I'll be here when you wake up. For the first time in 8 months, I believed him. Drop a comment if you're crying right now, because this next part is going to wreck you in the best way. Subscribe to see what happens when Kai meets Damon's family. I woke to sunlight streaming through gaps in the boarded windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For one disoriented moment, I forgot where I was. Then the events of last night crashed back in. Vaughn, the FBI, Damon's promises. I sat up carefully, my body aching in new and interesting ways. Pregnancy plus stress plus sleeping in an actual bed for the first time in months had left me feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Damon appeared in the doorway holding a tray. "You're awake. I made breakfast." Well, I ordered breakfast and put it on plates, but it's the thought that counts. The tray held French toast, fresh fruit, orange juice, and prenatal vitamins. "You got vitamins?" "Marcus picked them up this morning, along with clothes in your size because yours are still with the FBI. He set the tray on the bed. "I had to guess, but I think they'll fit." I looked at the bag of clothes on the chair. Maternity wear, nice quality but not ostentatious. Exactly what I would have chosen if I'd had the money. "This is too much," I said automatically. "It's breakfast and clothes. Pretty sure that's the minimum requirement for taking care of someone." Damon sat on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck. But I'm alive. That's something." "Your face is bruised." His jaw clenched. "Where Vaughn hit you." "I should have." "Don't." I touched his hand. "You did everything right. If you'd come outside, he might have shot you. This way, we're both alive and he's in prison. That's a win." Damon nodded but didn't look convinced. I ate the French toast in silence, trying to organize my thoughts. Everything felt surreal, like I'd fallen through a portal into someone else's life where things actually worked out. "Agent Chun called this morning," Damon said eventually. "They found more victims. 8 total, all Omegas who got away from Vaughn over the years. They're all willing to testify. Between that and the evidence from last night, the DA thinks he'll get 20 to life. 20 to life. The words should have brought relief. Instead, I just felt empty. What am I supposed to do now? The question came out small. I've been running for so long. I don't know how to stop. You figure out what you want. What would make you happy? Damon paused. If you could do anything, money and circumstances no object, what would it be? No one had ever asked me that before. I used to want to be a carpenter, I said slowly. My grandfather taught me when I was a kid. I loved working with wood, creating things that would last. But I never finished the apprenticeship program. Life got in the way. So finish it. I'm 6 months pregnant. So you start after the baby comes. Or you start now and take a break when you need to. Kai, the whole world just opened up for you. You're not trapped anymore. You can do whatever you want. The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I wouldn't even know where to start. I know some people. Damon pulled out his phone. One of the contractors I work with runs an apprenticeship program. He's always looking for talented people. And if you can prove you have the skills, he doesn't care about gaps in your resume. You'd do that for me? Mom, Damon said. This is Kai. Kai, my mother, Catherine Pierce. Catherine looked me up and down, and I fought the urge to fidget. I was wearing one of the nice maternity shirts Damon had bought me, but I still felt like a fraud. You're younger than I expected, she said finally. I'm 23, and 6 months pregnant with my grandchild. Yes, ma'am. She studied me for another long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Well, don't just stand there. Come inside. You must be exhausted. The house was exactly as intimidating as I'd feared. Art that probably cost more than I'd make in a lifetime. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. I felt like I was contaminating it just by breathing. Catherine led us to a sitting room and gestured for me to take the most comfortable-looking chair. I sat carefully, hyper-aware of my body language. Damon's father told me about your situation, Catherine said, pouring tea from a silver service. The stalking, the abuse. I'm very sorry you went through that. Thank you. He also told me that you've been living on the streets for months. Pregnant. Alone. Her voice sharpened. Why didn't you contact my son sooner? Mom. Damon started, but I held up my hand. Because I didn't think he'd care. We had one night together. I didn't even know his last name until I saw it on the building he bought. I met her eyes. I'm not here to trap your son or steal his money. I'm here because he insisted, and because I'm tired of running. If that's not good enough for you, I'll leave right now. Silence fell. Damon looked like he wanted to intervene but didn't know how. Then Catherine laughed. actually laughed. "Oh, I like you," she said. "You've got spine. Good. You'll need it dealing with this family." She poured tea into 3 cups. "Let me be very clear, Kai. I don't care about your circumstances or your past. What I care about is that you're carrying my grandchild and my son is clearly in love with you, even if he hasn't figured out how to say it yet." Damon choked on air. "So here's what's going to happen," Catherine continued serenely. "You're going to let us help you. Not because we pity you, but because that's what families do. We help each other. In return, you're going to take care of yourself and that baby. And you're going to give my son a chance to prove he's not like the alpha who hurt you. Deal?" I stared at her. "Just like that. Just like that." She sipped her tea. "Life's too short for games. You need help. We can provide it. Damon clearly cares about you. The math isn't complicated. Your husband will fall in line once he meets you. Richard's all bluster. He'll complain about propriety and timing. But the moment he sees that baby, he'll be utterly useless." She smiled. "Now, have you thought about names?" The conversation shifted to baby preparations, and I found myself slowly relaxing. Catherine was direct and sometimes intimidating, but she wasn't cruel. And the way she looked at Damon, with such obvious love and pride, made something ache in my chest. This was what a family was supposed to look like. When we left 3 hours later, I had a stack of baby name books, a promise from Catherine to take me shopping for nursery furniture, and a standing invitation to family dinners. "I told you she wasn't that scary," Damon said as we drove away. "She's terrifying, but in a good way." I looked at him. Did she mean it? About you being in love with me? Damon's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Would it freak you out if she was right?" "Probably, but ask me anyway." He pulled over into a parking lot and turned to face me. "I'm in love with you. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But yeah, I'm completely gone for you. Have been since that night at the gala." My heart was racing. "I don't know if I love you back yet." "That's okay. I'm broken and scared and I have no idea how to be in a healthy relationship. We'll figure it out together. I might never fully trust you. I'll wait as long as it takes." I looked at him, this impossible alpha who'd walked into my nightmare and somehow turned it into something resembling hope. "Ask me again in 6 months," I said finally. "After the baby comes. After I've had time to see if you really mean all the things you're promising. Ask me then. Deal?" Damon leaned forward and kissed me softly. 6 months. I can wait. Comment Team Damon if you think they're endgame, and subscribe because the next part is going to test everything they've built. The baby came 3 weeks early. I was in Frank's workshop, putting finishing touches on the toy chest I'd been building, when my water broke. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the puddle spreading across the concrete floor, not quite believing it was happening. Frank." My voice came out strangled. "I think I need to go to the hospital." Frank took one look at me and started yelling for his assistant to bring the car around. He called Damon while hustling me toward the parking lot, and by the time we made it to his truck, I could hear Damon's voice on speakerphone, frantic and heading our way. The contractions started in the truck. Real ones, not the Braxton Hicks I'd been dealing with for weeks. They stole my breath and made my vision go white at the edges. "Breathe," Frank kept saying, driving 10 miles over the speed limit. "Just breathe. You've got this." Damon met us at the hospital entrance, nearly tripping over his own feet in his rush to get to me. His hair was a mess, his shirt was buttoned wrong, and he looked absolutely terrified. "I'm here," he gasped. "I'm here. You're okay. Everything's okay." Another contraction hit and I grabbed his hand hard enough to bruise. "Nothing about this is okay. I changed my mind. I don't want to do this anymore." "Little late for that," Frank said, but not unkindly. He flagged down a nurse. "This Omega's in labor. Water broke about 20 minutes ago." Everything after that was a blur of hospital gowns and monitors and pain. So much pain. They said male Omega deliveries were difficult, that our bodies weren't designed for this, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality. Damon stayed through all of it, held my hand when I squeezed hard enough to cut off circulation. wiped my forehead when I was sweating and shaking. Let me scream at him when the pain got so bad I needed someone to blame. "You did this to me?" I shouted during one particularly brutal contraction. "This is your fault." "I know. I'm sorry. You're doing amazing. I love you. I hate you." "That's fair." 14 hours later, our daughter entered the world screaming her displeasure at the indignity of being born. The moment they placed her on my chest, wet and furious and absolutely perfect, everything else stopped mattering. "Hi," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Hi, baby girl. I'm your dad. The scary one. The other one is Damon. He's less scary but cries more." "I'm not crying," Damon said, actively crying as he looked down at both of us. "Okay, I'm crying. But she's perfect. Kai. She's absolutely perfect." Our daughter had Damon's dark hair and my eyes. She was tiny and wrinkled and had the angriest expression I'd ever seen on a newborn. "What should we name her?" Damon asked. I'd been thinking about this for months, ever since Catherine had given me those baby name books. But in the end, there was only one name that felt right. "Hope," I said. "Her name is Hope." The first week home with Hope was chaos. She cried constantly, ate constantly, and slept only when we were too exhausted to sleep ourselves. Damon and I took shifts, stumbling through those early days in a fog of diapers and feeding schedules. But every time Hope looked at me with those serious eyes, every time she curled her tiny hand around my finger, I fell more in love. Marcus showed up on day 3 with food and coffee and a horrified expression when he saw the state of the house. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "Thanks, Uncle Marcus," Damon muttered, bouncing Hope while she screamed. Really feeling the support. "I brought a night nurse. She's in the car. Consider it my godfather gift." Marcus looked at me. "Go shower. Sleep. We've got this for the next 8 hours." I wanted to argue, but God, I was so tired. I looked at Damon, who nodded. "Go. I'll be here when you wake up." I slept for 6 hours straight and woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of Damon singing off-key to Hope. I found them in the nursery, the one he'd prepared months ago, with Hope sleeping peacefully in his arms. "You're awake," he said softly. "How do you feel?" "Human. Almost." I crossed to them, looking down at our daughter. "Is she okay?" "She's perfect. The nurse said she just needed to eat more frequently. We've got a new feeding schedule." He looked up at me. "How are you really? Not just physically." "All of it." I thought about it. A month ago, I'd been stealing copper pipes and living in an abandoned building. Now I had a partner, a daughter, a family that actually wanted me, and a job I loved. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for this all to fall apart." "It's not going to fall apart. You don't know that." "No, but I believe it anyway." Damon shifted Hope carefully, reaching for my hand with his free one. "You asked me to ask again in 6 months. It's been almost that. So I'm asking. Kai, I love you. I'm in love with you. I want to build a life with you and Hope. Not because of obligation or guilt, but because I choose you. Every day. Do you think you could maybe choose me back?" I looked at him, this alpha who'd refused to give up on me even when I gave him every reason to, who'd held my hand through labor, who sang off-key to our daughter at 3 in the morning, who'd somehow taken my broken pieces and helped me build something new. "I choose you," I whispered. "I love you. I'm still scared and I'm still figuring out how to trust. But I love you. Is that enough?" "That's everything." He kissed me softly, careful not to wake Hope. "Will you marry me? Not for appearances or legal reasons, but because I want to spend the rest of my life with you." I'd imagined this moment before and always thought I'd panic, run, find some excuse to protect myself from potential hurt. Instead, I just felt peace. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Hope chose that moment to wake up and start crying, breaking the romantic moment with her demands to be fed. We both laughed, and Damon handed her to me. "This is our life now," he said, watching us. "Chaos and crying and never enough sleep. And love," I added. "Don't forget love. Never." He kissed my forehead. Then hopes. I could never forget that. 6 months later. The community center reopened on a Saturday in June, warm sun filtering through the newly installed windows. Damon had bought the building 6 months ago, intending to demolish it. Instead, we'd turned it into exactly what its name promised. A sanctuary. I stood in the main hall, hope strapped to my chest in a carrier, watching volunteers set up tables for the opening day celebration. The space had been completely renovated. The basement where I'd once hidden was now a workshop for teaching carpentry skills. The upper floors had been converted into temporary housing for homeless Omegas. "You're going to cry," Damon said, appearing beside me with 2 cups of coffee. "I can see it happening." "I'm not crying." I was absolutely about to cry. "It's okay if you do. This is kind of a big deal." He handed me a coffee, then gently touched Hope's head. She was sleeping peacefully, her tiny hand clutching my shirt. "You took the worst thing that happened to you and turned it into something that's going to help hundreds of people." "We did. Not just me." I looked around the space. Marcus was arguing with a caterer about table placement. Catherine was directing volunteers with the efficiency of a general. Frank and his crew were giving tours of the workshop, showing off the tools and equipment we'd gathered. And in the corner, talking quietly with a young Omega who'd just arrived from the shelter, was Rachel, the attorney who'd helped me. She'd volunteered to provide free legal services to anyone who came through the sanctuary. "It takes a village," I said quietly. "Yeah, it does." Damon slipped his arm around my waist. "How are you feeling?" "Really?" I did a mental inventory. 6 months ago, I'd been terrified and alone, convinced I didn't deserve help or happiness. Now I was married to an alpha who actually understood what partnership meant. I had a daughter who was healthy and thriving. I had a job I loved and a family that had chosen me. And I had forgiven myself for all the time I'd spent just trying to survive. "I feel good," I said, surprised by how true it was. Actually good. Not just pretending. Good. Because I need to tell you something, and I don't want you to freak out. My old instincts kicked in. "What happened? Is it Vaughn? Did something?" "No, nothing bad. The opposite of bad." Damon pulled out his phone and showed me an email. "Remember how I submitted your toy chest design to that craft competition? The one I told you not to submit because it wasn't good enough? That one. You won. First place. The prize includes a feature in National Woodworking Magazine and a $5,000 grant to start your own business." I stared at the email. Read it 3 times to make sure it was real. "I won. You won. Because you're incredibly talented. And I knew it even if you didn't." Damon was grinning. "So what do you think? Want to start your own carpentry business? We could use part of the sanctuary for your workshop. Teach classes, take commissions, build things that last. Build things that last. Like this community. Like our family. Like the life I'd never thought I'd get to have." "Yes," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Yeah, I want to do that." Hope stirred against my chest, making her little grunting sounds that meant she'd be awake and demanding food soon. Damon leaned down and kissed her forehead, then kissed me. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "In case I don't say it enough. I'm so fucking proud of who you are." Before I could respond, the front doors opened and people started streaming in. Families from the neighborhood. Social workers from the shelter system. Other Omegas who'd heard about the sanctuary and wanted to see if it was real. The opening ceremony was supposed to start in 30 minutes, but people kept arriving. The hall filled with conversation and laughter and the sound of hope being rebuilt one person at a time. Marcus appeared at my elbow, looking uncomfortable in the way he always did at emotional gatherings. "There's someone here asking for you. Young Omega, about 19. He's in pretty bad shape." My stomach tightened with familiar dread. "Where?" "Side room. Rachel's with him." I handed Hope to Damon and followed Marcus to one of the small counseling rooms we'd set up. Inside, a thin Omega was huddled in a chair, his arms wrapped around himself. Bruises covered his visible skin, and his eyes held the same haunted look I'd seen in my own reflection not so long ago. Rachel looked up when I entered, This is Kai. He runs the sanctuary. Kai, this is Jesse. Hi, Jesse. I sat down carefully, keeping distance between us. You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. That's what they always say. Jesse's voice was barely a whisper. Until they do. Yeah, I know. I pushed up my sleeves, showing him the scars on my arms. Old ones, from Vaughn. I've been where you are. I know how it feels when you can't see a way out. But there is a way out. And it starts here with people who actually give a shit. Jesse looked at me properly for the first time. Really looked, seeing the scars and the truth in my eyes. My alpha, he started, then stopped. He's not going to just let me go. Mine didn't either. He stalked me for 8 months. Showed up at my new home with his pack. Ready to take me back by force. I leaned forward. He's in prison now. 25 to life. Because I had people who helped me fight back. And you have those people too if you want them. I don't have money. I can't pay. Nobody's asking you to pay. This sanctuary exists because when I needed help, someone gave it to me. Now I'm paying it forward. So what do you say? Want to stick around? See if things can actually get better. Jesse was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Rachel immediately started talking through legal options while I went to find Marcus. We had protocols for situations like this: safe housing, legal protection, medical care. Within an hour, Jesse was set up in one of the temporary rooms with food, clean clothes, and a volunteer counselor. I found Damon in the hall, swaying gently with Hope, who was now awake and watching the world with her serious eyes. New resident? He asked. Yeah, 19th this month. We're going to need to expand sooner than we thought. Good thing I bought the building next door then. At my expression, Damon grinned. What? It was a sound investment. And you're going to need more workshop space for your business anyway. I shook my head, but I was smiling. You're impossible. You love me anyway. Unfortunately, I took Hope from him, breathing in her baby smell. She grabbed my finger and held on tight. Hey Bug, want to see the workshop Dad built? It's pretty cool. We walked through the sanctuary together, this family we built from broken pieces. I showed Hope the carpentry equipment, explaining what each tool did even though she couldn't possibly understand. Damon followed behind, taking pictures and making ridiculous faces to make her smile. In the main hall, Catherine had corralled volunteers into actually following her organizational plan. Marcus was arguing with someone about building codes. Frank was showing a group of teenagers how to properly hold a hammer. This place, this community, it had started as a hiding place, a last resort for someone who'd run out of options. And somehow, it had become something so much more. The opening ceremony began at 2. I stood at the front of the room, Hope asleep in my carrier, Damon's hand in mine, and looked out at the crowd that had gathered. 6 months ago, I started, my voice shaking slightly. I was living in the basement of this building. I was 6 months pregnant, homeless, and convinced I didn't deserve help. I was wrong about that last part. Everyone deserves help. Everyone deserves safety. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. I saw Jesse in the crowd, listening intently. Saw other Omegas who'd come through the shelter system who knew exactly what I was talking about. Saw allies and volunteers who'd committed to making this vision real. This sanctuary exists because one person refused to give up on me when I'd given up on myself. Because a community came together to prove that change is possible. Because sometimes, the places that hold our worst memories can be transformed into something that holds our greatest hope. Damon squeezed my hand. So this space is for anyone who needs it. No judgment, no cost, no questions that you don't want to answer. You're safe here. You're wanted here. And you're going to be okay. Even if you can't see it yet, I promise, you're going to be okay. The applause was thunderous. People stood cheering. Catherine was definitely crying. Marcus looked uncomfortable but proud. Frank was already making plans with some of the attendees about carpentry classes. After the ceremony, people filtered through, sharing their stories. A woman who'd left her abusive alpha 3 years ago and was now a social worker. A man who'd been homeless for 5 years and now ran a support group. A teenager who'd just aged out of foster care and needed a safe place to land. Each story reminded me why this mattered, why we'd fought so hard to create this space. As the sun began to set, the crowd finally thinned. Most of the volunteers had left, though Catherine insisted on staying to help clean up. "Absolutely not," she said when I tried to convince her to go home. "This is my grandchild's legacy we're building. I'm invested." We worked together in comfortable silence, putting away chairs and wiping down tables. Hope was passed between various adults who all wanted baby time. By the time we finished, it was almost 9. "We should get this one home," Damon said, collecting Hope from his mother. "Someone needs a bath and probably a full bottle." "Someone needs several bottles," I corrected. "She's going through a growth spurt." We said our goodbyes and headed to the car. The community center looked different at night, lit up from the inside. Through the windows, I could see Jessie sitting in the common room with Rachel, talking quietly, starting the long process of rebuilding. "You okay?" Damon asked as we drove home. "Yeah, just thinking about how different things are now." "Better different?" "So much better." I looked back at Hope, already falling asleep in her car seat. I used to think happiness was something other people got, that I'd spent all my luck just surviving, and there wasn't anything left for actually living. And now I know that's bullshit, that everyone deserves happiness, even people who've been broken, especially people who've been broken. I reached over and laced my fingers through his. "Thank you for not giving up on me when I was too scared to hope. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your story." Damon brought my hand to his lips and kissed it. "For building this life with me." We drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who don't need to fill every moment with words. At home, we went through the familiar routine. Bath time, bottles, the complicated dance of getting a 6-month-old ready for bed. Hope fought sleep like always, her eyes drooping shut then popping back open, determined not to miss anything. "Just sleep, bug," I whispered, rocking her gently. "The world will still be here in the morning." Eventually, she gave in. Her breathing evened out, and she went completely limp in that way babies do when they're fully asleep. I set her carefully in her crib and stood there for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall. Damon appeared behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. We stood together, watching our daughter sleep, and I felt something I'd never expected to feel. Complete peace. "I love you," I said quietly. "I love you too." Damon's voice was soft against my ear. "Both of you. So much it's actually kind of terrifying." "Good terrifying or bad terrifying?" "The best kind. The kind that makes you want to be better than you are." We stood there for a while longer, reluctant to leave even though Hope was clearly down for at least a few hours. Finally, exhaustion won and we headed to our own bed. As I was drifting off to sleep, Damon's arm around me, Hope's monitor on the nightstand, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain and fear and desperate nights when I'd wondered if I'd survive until morning. I'd survived. More than that, I'd healed. Not completely, maybe never completely. The scars would always be there, physical and emotional. But they didn't define me anymore. I was Kai. Father, husband, carpenter, sanctuary founder. Survivor who'd become a thriver. Someone who'd taken the worst thing that happened to him and turned it into a way to help others. And I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. That was enough. That was everything. 2 years later, Hope's second birthday party was chaos in the best possible way. The backyard was full of toddlers running in circles, parents trying to keep up, and enough cake to feed a small army. "She's going to crash so hard after this," Damon said, watching Hope chase one of Marcus's nephews around the yard. "We're talking epic meltdown. Worth it." I was working on assembling the play structure we'd gotten her. A miniature carpenter's workbench with toy tools. She's been asking for this for months. She's 2. She asks for everything. But she specifically asked for building stuff like Papa. That's different. Damon smiled and knelt down to help me. "You're going soft." I was always soft. I just hit it better before. The sanctuary was thriving. We'd expanded into 3 buildings now, with a full-time staff of 12 and volunteers rotating through constantly. Jesse, the first Omega we'd helped on opening day, was now training to be a counselor. He wanted to help others the way we'd helped him. My carpentry business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. I taught classes twice a week and took custom commissions. The toy chest I'd made had been featured in that magazine, which led to more press, which led to more clients. I'd even hired 2 apprentices. Catherine appeared with Lemonade and Judgment. That play structure is crooked. It's not crooked, it's rustic, I defended. It's crooked. Let me help before you traumatize my granddaughter with subpar construction. Between the 3 of us, we got it assembled properly. Hope ran over immediately, her eyes going wide. Papa, building. That's right, Bug. Your very own workshop. I handed her a toy hammer. What are we going to build first? Everything. She whacked the workbench enthusiastically. Build everything. Ambitious. I like it. Marcus wandered over with his partner, Adrian. A quiet beta who worked in tech and balanced out Marcus's intensity perfectly. They'd been together for a year now, and Marcus was obviously gone for him. The Sanctuary's board meeting is next week, Marcus said. We need to discuss the expansion proposal. Can we not talk business at my daughter's birthday party? Damon pleaded. We absolutely can. The catering contract is up for renewal, and I have opinions about the replacement candidates. Of course you do. I left them to argue about administrative details and went to find Jesse, who was sitting on the porch with a slice of cake, watching the chaos with a small smile. How are you doing? I asked, sitting beside him. Good. Really good. He turned to me. I got accepted to the social work program. Full scholarship. Pride swelled in my chest. Jesse, that's amazing. It's because of you. What you built at the sanctuary, what you showed me was possible. It made me want to do the same thing for other people. You did that yourself. I just provided the space. You provided hope. Jesse's voice was firm. That matters more than you think. We sat in comfortable silence, watching Hope terrorize the other toddlers with her enthusiasm. She'd inherited Damon's intensity and my stubbornness. God help us all when she hit adolescence. Damon caught my eye from across the yard and smiled. After 2 years, that smile still made my heart skip. I never thought I'd have this, I said quietly. Family, community, purpose. I spent so long just trying to survive that I forgot what it felt like to actually live. And now I'm living, actually living, and it's better than I ever imagined. Hope ran over, covered in frosting and grass stains, demanding to be picked up. I scooped her up and she immediately smeared cake on my shirt. Love Papa, she announced. Love you too, Bug. Damon joined us and we stood there, our little family of 3, watching the celebration continue around us. This life we'd built from broken pieces. This future we'd fought so hard to create. It wasn't perfect. We still had hard days. I still sometimes woke up from nightmares about Vaughn. Damon still worried too much about everyone around him. Hope was entering her terrible 2s with impressive dedication. But it was ours. Messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. What are you thinking about? Damon asked. I looked at him, at Hope, at the community gathered in our backyard. Friends who'd become family. Survivors who'd become thrivers. Broken people who'd helped each other heal. I'm thinking about Sanctuary, I said. How it's not just a place, it's a feeling. Safety. Belonging. Home. And, Damon prompted, knowing there was more. And I'm thinking that I finally found mine. He kissed my temple, careful not to jostle Hope. Good. Because you're stuck with us now. Worst fate imaginable, I said, but I was smiling. Hope wiggled to be put down, spotted more cake, and took off running. We followed at a more reasonable pace, hand in hand, watching our daughter discover joy in the simple act of being alive. This was my life now, not the one I'd planned, not the one I'd thought I deserved. Better, so much better than I'd ever dared to hope. And I was done running from it. The end. Thank you for reading The Sanctuary Keeper. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Stories of survival and healing matter, and so do you. Remember, you are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you choose to rebuild.